Rick Sanchez has done some horrible things throughout Rick and Morty, so here are his worst moments until now. 10. Turning into a pickle just to avoid therapy.
I'm a pickle! I'm Pickle Rick!
Avoiding therapy is not an uncommon thing to do for middle-aged or old men, but Rick Sanchez took it to a whole other level in Season 3, Episode 3 when he turned himself into a literal pickle, just so that he could avoid going to a therapy session with his family.
Look, we're running late. We have to go.
Where are you guys going?
I have an appointment downtown.
Oh my god, Beth. Totally slipped my mind.
He almost pulled it off as well, until Morty messed it up for him by pointing out how Rick had conveniently placed a device to turn him back into a human the moment his family left the house.
Hey Rick, why is there a syringe of mysterious fluid hanging directly over you?
It's one of the few times where you're actually glad to see Morty ruining Rick's plans, because this was a total jerk move by the smartest man in the universe.
I'm not a snake. I'm a pickle. I'm a pickle.
Considering the amount of damage Rick has done to his daughter and her family, you'd think he'd be a little more interested in trying to help them cope with the after effects. Unfortunately, Rick isn't really a normal person and believes that therapy is useless. It takes a lot of arrogance and apathy to turn yourself into a pickle just to protect yourself from a nagging therapist.
It's possible that you and your father have a very specific dynamic. Kids with a tendency to misdirect their feelings.
You.
Mom!
Both of you two.
So Rick gives a perfect example of what it's like to be that kind of person. Just think about it for a moment, guys. After reluctantly attending the session as a pickle,
But I hope you know that's not what that session was supposed to be.
I know it was Morty peeing his pants.
he even convinces Beth to drop the kids off and go out drinking instead of handling her problems, rather than taking the time to help mend a wound he is directly responsible for.
We should get a drink.
Like, go somewhere?
Yeah, let's drop the kids off and go tie one on.
He'd rather turn himself into a pickle because it's easier than admitting he's selfish and vindictive. Also, if you consider the fact that he took down an entire Russian mafia operation in the middle of this chaos, only goes on to further prove that he's an extremely dangerous individual to be around.
Farewell, Solenia.
9. Manipulating Beth to divorce Jerry.
Beth, it's him or me.
Seems like you guys need some privacy. I'll be in the garage.
Rick Sanchez has never been a fan of Jerry Smith, and judging from how Jerry thinks as an individual, the mad scientist may actually have a point here.
Emotionally speaking, honey, Shoney's is my home.
Yeah, but you just got out of prison. I mean,
Seeing his own daughter Beth get married to someone with the IQ of a sloth really must have been hard for the smartest man in the universe. No, multiverse. However, things took a dramatic turn in the opening episode of Season 3, where Rick actually managed to convince Beth to get a divorce.
Divorced.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, sweetie.
Although this was actually an act of manipulation which required a ridiculously detailed and lengthy plan to execute. Yes, Rick actually gets himself captured on purpose, so that the Galactic Federation could take over Earth. This led to a chain of events that included Beth losing her job, Jerry getting a job,
I just got my 6th promotion this week, and I still don't know what I do.
Morty revisiting the Cronenberg world, which has his original family, and of course, the eventual destruction of the Galactic Federation.
Mr. President, the Blemflark's value just dropped to nothing.
God knows. Calm down, people. Gentlemen. There's a solution here you're not seeing.
After performing such heroic acts and coming back to his family, it would only be natural for Beth to want to stay with her father, especially with all her abandonment issues.
God, Dad, that is not your burden to bear. I feel terrible that I misjudged you.
At the same time, Rick also expected Jerry to get annoyed at his return, which led to him issuing an ultimatum to Beth, either choose her father or her husband.
It's him or me.
This was clearly the wrong wager to make, as Beth ended up choosing Rick and kicking Jerry out of the house. All of this being a conspiracy executed by Rick would have seemed like conjecture until that point, but then the smartest man in the multiverse eventually spilled the beans to Morty.
Go to my... not so fast, Morty. You hurt your mom. We've got adventures to go on, Morty. Just you and me.
This was all a petty act of vengeance to get back at Jerry for a previous episode where he wanted to turn Rick into the Federation. Of course, he also wanted to destroy the Galactic Federation for going after him in the first place. That rant totally changed a lot of people's perceptions about Rick and how far he could go to get what he wants.
Oh, it gets darker, Morty. Welcome to the darkest year of our adventures. I just took over the family, Morty. Go and do whatever I say, Morty. Forever.
8. Trapping NASA employees in the name of science.
The signal turned out to be instruction, an interstellar vehicle.
We'll need a pilot.
We've already established how Rick will go to no end to get what he wants, and we can see another instance of that when he tricks a couple of innocent NASA scientists into taking his and Morty's place in Season 3, Episode 8. It really was a horrible move, considering those scientists were really looking forward to interacting with Rick, who passed himself off as this weird foreign entity.
I am Zigzag.
Oh shit, Morty, get behind me, it's the fucking alien overlord!
Yeah, the alien getups looked far from convincing, but truth be told, there is nothing that can be reasoned with when you feel like you're on the brink of a scientific discovery that can change the very foundation of the universe. Unfortunately, it was just an old man playing make-believe with his grandson.
It's a trap! Abort! I'm still in his Shoney's. Repeat, we never left his Shoney!
The worst part wasn't even the fact that Rick tricked those people into swapping places with him. Rather, it was the fact that he knew they were never gonna make it out of that menagerie, especially with the huge alien doing his round.
Assess this with cold indifference, you beanie-headed prick!
Rick and Morty both messed up here, and they made someone else pay for their mistakes.
I have so much to learn from you.
I know, right?
It was a horrible thing to do, and Rick ended up ruining the lives of two perfectly competent humans who could have gone on to achieve much greater things had they not been deceived. This once again proves the fact that Rick Sanchez is not an inherently good man, and will go to any extremes to get his way, even if it means sacrificing innocent lives in the process. He even made sure that Morty forgot this memory because he knew that his grandson's conscience would not have allowed him to stay quiet about this for long.
Of all the experiences you begged me to remove from your life.
It's criminal behavior, and yet it's not even among the top 5 worst things Rick has done.
Grab him. Twist.
7. Using Jerry as bait for a monster.
Ah! Get it off me! It's eating me!
Out of everyone in the main cast for Rick and Morty, Jerry Smith is easily the most hated person if we were to consider Rick Sanchez's feelings. Sure, he may annoy Morty a lot and loses his patience with him too, but there is some serious spite towards Jerry, which is actually the most dad-like aspect of Rick.
Yo, what's up, Big Chill? Don't go into that telepod!
In Season 3, Episode 5, Jerry tries to get back at Rick by teaming up with Rosado Groupon and his goons to have him assassinated at the only mortality point in an otherwise immortal world.
Oh, shit!
Yay, that's pretty messed from Jerry's perspective, but he did end up alerting Rick about the danger that awaited him after a crazy and chaotic sequence.
We had a deal, Jerry Smith.
Really common name.
Rick finally loses his patience with Jerry and decides to get back at him in the worst way possible. Basically, he allows Jerry to be eaten by a giant snake in pretty horrifying fashion. Luckily, he manages to free him right after.
I knew you wouldn't let me die.
That was never an option.
Because you never had a son.
Because the main intention was to soak him in the monster's intestines. However, after Rick rips him out, he leaves him as bait for another bigger monster to come along. You can only imagine Jerry's state of mind throughout this whole ordeal.
Jesus Christ, what the fuck, Rick?
Sure, Rick doesn't let Jerry die, but that's mostly because he needed the monsters for his escape. Who's to say what he would have done if he already had an escape route sorted out?
But hey, it's about the journey, not the destination, right, Jerry?
Also, he leaves Jerry to feel terrified while alone and helpless, which is a psychological torment that's pretty messed up from every possible angle. Also, he does this twice, which is more than enough to cause irreparable mental damage to Jerry's psyche. The fact that Rick was even able to come up with the whole idea of using Jerry as bait instantly was definitely suspicious behavior. 6. Selling weapons for games.
Ugh, here, go away.
Ooh, you sell weapons to killers for money?
So, it turns out when Rick's not jumping between dimensions and galaxies, he's selling weapons for a living, which is bad enough as it is. However, when we learn that Krombopolos Michael, an elite assassin who is simply incapable of empathy, happens to be Rick's #1 customer, it just paints the mad scientist in a worse light. We learn about this when Rick makes a quick stop for delivery, and Morty insists on coming with him even though he is advised against it.
I want to come with.
Don't come with. It's boring.
That's when Krombopolos Michael shows up and pays Rick a total of 3,000 flurbos in exchange for an antimatter gun.
Ooh, yeah, this looks deadly. So this shoots antimatter? My target can't be killed with regular matter.
Much to Rick's dismay, the assassin then explains to Morty in explicit detail about what his granddad does.
Listen, if you ever need anybody murdered, please give me a call.
You're giving him a card?
Obviously mortified, Morty tries to explain to Rick that selling weapons is just as bad as murder, but Rick thinks that he's not really going to stop stop anything if he abandoned selling weapons. After all, he knows that Krombopulos Michael would still find a way to buy weapons anyway. Sure, that's probably the case, but it doesn't make his actions any less moral. To make matters worse, the only reason he made the arms deal was so he'd have some spending cash at an arcade known as Blips and Chits.
An entire afternoon at Blips and Chits!
The main reason why this is such abhorrent behavior is that Rick is casually aiding and abetting multiple murders just for the sake of something as casual as a gaming arcade.
No, you could stop this killing from happening, Rick.
Yeah, that's the difference between you and me, Morty.
His disregard for life in general has been shown multiple times, but this is easily one of the strongest examples of how he would sell anyone down the river, as long as it resulted in him getting something beneficial. At least Morty was able to stop Krombopulos Michael from completing his task later, although that too came at the cost of several lives.
You don't understand! This guy was gonna kill someone!
What are you doing, Morty?
5. Smuggling seeds inside his own grandson. It wasn't really tough for people to start judging Rick so early on as a person,
I had to make a bomb, Morty. I had to create a bomb.
What? A bomb?
I'm gonna drop it down there.
because the very first episode of the series had him doing some of the most inexcusable things on the planet, or in this case, the multiverse.
I'm gonna make it like a new Adam and Eve, and you're gonna be Adam, and Jessica's gonna be Eve.
Keep in mind that this is indeed the very first time we as an audience are introduced to Rick Sanchez.
You know what?
Neutrino bomb armed.
When he decides he needs Mega Tree seeds, he goes on an adventure to find them while also having Morty accompany him. He decides to jump to Dimension 35C to find them, and find them he does after a bit of a struggle.
We're gonna die! We're gonna die!
Then he has to go through interdimensional customs to go back home. Unfortunately, these things aren't quite legal where he's from, so he convinces Morty to shove them up his nether region to get through security.
I'm gonna need you to take these seeds into the bathroom, and I'm gonna need you to put them way up inside your Morty.
First of all, illegal smuggling isn't something you should be doing at all.
Oh, geez, Rick. I really don't want to have to do that.
But Rick takes it up not just by one, but by 2 whole notches. He not only does this in front of his grandson, but also pushes him to be an active participant in the crime.
Please, Morty, you have to do it, Morty.
Oh, man.
That's not exactly the kind of role model you want while growing up. These are gigantic, ridged-looking things that are rock hard, so it isn't an easy or painless task. We can only imagine how bad it must have been for poor Morty to have gone through with Rick's request.
You gotta do it for Grandpa, Morty. You gotta put these seeds inside your...
Sadly, interdimensional customs can still see the two are smuggling something,
It's a new machine. Detects stuff all the way up your...
causing them to try and run away. To make matters worse, the seeds then paralyze Morty,
You're also gonna lose a significant amount of brain functionality for 72 hours, Morty.
making this entire experience completely regretful for him. Honestly though, Morty should have just stopped entertaining Rick after this mission.
Rick and Morty forever 100 times.
4th, wiping out Morty's memories. We have already spoken about this in an earlier entry, but it's important to note that it was just one of many other memories which Rick had wiped out from Morty's head.
This is my archive of all the experiences you begged me to remove from your life.
A lot of these memories ended up really dark. For example, the one where Morty accidentally kills an entire room full of people just because he flipped a switch the wrong way.
What was that?
Then there's the horrible fate of Mr. Lunas, which was caused simply because of Morty's inability to look at a smudge another way.
Like how from a certain angle, some people would say he looked like a smudge.
The list goes on, but there's another aspect to consider here, which is that the memories being wiped out from Morty's mind aren't all about him being the one messing up.
Holy shit. How many of these are just horrible mistakes I've made?
There's one where Beth instantly chooses Summer over Morty to save her life, which is heartbreaking for any child.
Summer!
And then we also get to see multiple instances where Rick has been the one messing up. What this shows is that Rick has completely taken control over Morty's mind and memories. Wiping out whatever he feels would not be convenient for him.
Go to school, Summer. I'll go in Morty's memory and do a little...
One can understand traumatic experiences that may adversely affect a person's behavior.
Think I'm an adolescent boy?
Huh.
But removing a memory about killing an animal simply because you thought you were in the wrong planet
Wait, are we on Vincenulon 9 or Vincenulon 7?
is not something Morty needs to forget. Rick just wants to exert his dominance over his grandson.
How long have you been saying that wrong?
Oh, you like that, huh? Want me to erase it?
What?
And for that to happen, he needs Morty to only have favorable memories of him. After a whole episode of issues reaching their boiling point, we learn that this is a pretty common occurrence, and Summer normally cleans up the mess.
You guys doing Morty's mind blowers?
Once again, this is not supposed to be normal behavior by any stretch of imagination.
No wonder you're constantly fighting with each other and behind schedule.
What?
3. Creating multiple bombs to destroy Earth. So Rick really hates the world with his guts. That's not new information if you're a day one fan of the series, and we wouldn't be surprised to learn that's a pretty common belief among the many people of this universe too. Still, not many will go as far to create their own personal apocalypse bomb for the sake of appeasing their own wishes. Well, that's exactly what Rick did, and he did it with a lot of razz. He calls it the neutrino bomb, and in the very first episode of the show, he gets heavily intoxicated and intends to drop it on Earth. As a matter of fact, this is essentially the very first scene ever. Luckily, Morty manages to talk him out of it here.
You know what? That was all a test, Morty.
And we are made to believe that everything is fine now. Unfortunately, we learn several seasons later that Rick makes these neutrino bombs pretty frequently, and it's up to Morty to defuse them if they even work.
The whole planet will get blown up with the neutrino bomb.
Yeah, in season 3, episode 4, Rick ends up giving a parodied version of the Avengers a real run for their money, just because he had a drunken fit.
Well, it's official. I had too much to drink last night.
With the neutrino bomb serving as one of the obstacles, Morty had to get to work immediately, and this sequence even led to a rather ugly fight between Alan Rails and Million Ants. Poor guy got cheated on and destroyed by the man who cucked him.
Whoa. Didn't see that coming.
Rick really doesn't leave any survivors when he's mad, does he? We'd actually put this higher on the list, but since Rick's never really gone through with the bomb properly, we can only keep it at 3.
Who cares?
2. Turning the entire world into monsters. This one may have started off as a helpful assist from a concerned granddad, but it ended up ruining an entire planet filled with billions of people. When Rick develops a potion to make Jessica fall in love with Morty, things backfire rather horribly. The potion's effects can be extremely contagious, causing the entire town to become viciously obsessed with the teenage boy.
I love Morty, and I hope Morty loves me.
To fix the problem, Rick creates another potion to dump on the population, and it works. But it backfires even worse than the earlier output. Sure, the town isn't in love with Morty anymore, but now they're horrible monsters. After a lot of trial and error, Rick ends up turning every single person on the planet into something straight out of a David Cronenberg film.
Boy, Morty, I really Cronenberged the world up, didn't I?
Apart from Jerry, Beth, and Summer, all of whom are related to Morty. With nowhere else to go, Rick and Morty then jump to another dimension, leaving the old one behind. In this dimension, both of our heroes die, so the two quickly hide the bodies and slip back into their lives. When they return to the destroyed dimension, the world has turned into a Mad Max-style dystopia, where their family lives like tribal warriors. All of this could have been avoided if Rick had just told Morty not to use his potion during flu season.
Don't you worry about that sort of thing, Cronenberg Morty.
1. Controlling an entire microverse. Rick Sanchez doesn't rely on fossil fuel like us commoners. Instead, he runs his UFO on energy generated by a tiny universe who thinks that Rick is God.
We are being revisited by the alien known as Rick.
Unfortunately, their god simply thinks of them as a convenient energy source which can be kept in a box. All of these people have been living a huge lie, and Rick even thinks of them as lesser beings by using all kinds of made-up symbols and gestures that would otherwise be considered offensive in his world.
You!
What did you say to me?
You told me it means much obliged.
Morty's reaction summed it all up, as it was one of the few times we sided with his morality. Now, exploiting living beings for the equivalent of gas is pretty awful, but it gets even worse when he threatens to destroy everything when things stop going his way. By this, we mean that Rick started acting like a spoiled sport when he found his microverse version was doing the exact same time.
I told them this means peace among worlds. How hilarious is that?
After a long and arduous battle, Rick holds that fact over the most intelligent being in this dimension, leaving him to realize he's nothing more than a tool. That's pretty messed up. Do you agree with me on this?
You were right, Morty. We really just needed to be honest with those guys. All right, here we go.
Let me know in the comments if you want to see another topic. Okay then, see you in the next one.